as unbelievable as this may sound, there are some people, or at least one person, who thinks that it's a conspiracy theory that solid-state batteries use up a lot of silver. There's this thought that there's about 1 kilo of silver used in every EV, and that is a conspiracy theory. If you listen to this.
So Dave's ideas about increased silver consumption by the EV industry seem to be based on a 2020 paper from Samsung that proposed a battery design that used about 3 grams of silver per cell. And that particular design for batteries doesn't seem to have been adopted by any of the major vehicle manufacturers or their suppliers. However, it was widely circulated on a number of silverbug conspiracy theory groups. And because of their sort of desperation to believe that they had made the right choices, this conspiracy theory was amplified. But looking at the sort of the roadmaps for the major manufacturers, literally nobody is adopting this. So there could be other uses of silver, and the most notable one right now is still photovoltaics. But the one that Dave Silver cites is demonstrably wrong, I think.
If you heard that correctly, he thinks it's a conspiracy theory that solid-state batteries use a lot of silver and copper, and there's about 1 kilo of silver needed in each of these EV solid-state batteries. I cannot, for the life of me, work out how he comes to the conclusion that that's a conspiracy theory, but each to his own. But I think he's pretty much wrong in everything he says. And I think that solid-state batteries will be a massive demand for silver and copper. And the technology is absolutely amazing. This is the Skyrider X5. There's an X1, which is an incredible bike. And there's another one, X3, I think, which is just a flying car without wheels. But this is the one I'm interested in. I saw this in the Osaka Expo. This is amazing with solid-state batteries. Now, I personally do not claim to be an expert on solid-state batteries at all, but I'm very interested in it. And my brother-in-law is in the industry. I was at the CES Osaka in Japan last year. My wife's Japanese. Her sister's husband, my brother-in-law, works on flying cars. And he is involved, and he has got insider knowledge. And he does know about the amount of silver and copper needed, and that these are supposed to be environmentally friendly and green, and there's no geopolitical issues with them. And we've talked about it at length. He knows the amount of silver and copper needed. This technology is incredible. These drones would not be possible without solid state. They didn't have a very long run time with the old type batteries, but now they can stay in the air for hours because of solid state batteries, and they do need a lot of silver. And it is not a conspiracy theory. I know that's a trigger word for a lot of people, but it's not a conspiracy theory that lots of silver and lots of copper are needed in these amazing technologies. I think a lot of people don't understand what a conspiracy theory is. I had a big run-in with this guy from Mind of Steel about the data center melting down. I'm sure that was a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy theory. I can't prove it. They said the data center melted down due to overheating to stop silver trading. I think that was a conspiracy. The Mind of Steel group think there are no conspiracies. Bankers don't lie. Politicians don't lie. What are you talking about? You're a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. Well, I think they do lie. Bankers do lie. They lied about the data center melting down. That was a conspiracy to manipulate silver, and it is a conspiracy. They did something that was illegal. It's criminal activity, and they lied about it to say the data center melted down. That is not true. It was a lie. But I just had a message from someone that this guy who doesn't believe in conspiracy theories, bankers don't lie, politicians don't lie. He's left some long, rambling messages, apparently, about me, another hit piece on me. And the basic gist of it is that I'm stupid for investing in silver. It's a profoundly stupid thing to do. I think he said I've gone about it the most stupid way possible, buying physical silver. And he says it's better to buy ETFs and paper and digital promises of silver. He obviously hasn't got a clue what a short squeeze is. We are going for a short squeeze, and this will be the mother of all short squeezes. The idea is to take enough physical silver out of available supply to cause a shortage. And that shortage is coming anyway. The shortage will happen. We just want it to happen sooner, and we want to save as much silver as possible so that we can have these amazing flying cars in the future. I'll play this long rambling thing at the end of this video. I didn't really listen to all of it. I didn't understand half of it. I think he ties himself up in knots, but the basic gist of it is he doesn't want you buying physical silver bars. He thinks buy silver ETFs instead, but he ties himself up in knots. And he just wants to say that Dave Silver is stupid for going for a short squeeze. It's a conspiracy theory that this technology uses lots of silver. He really said that. And he wants you to buy ETFs and paper and digital illusions of wealth rather than taking real physical silver off the market. Listen to this if you want, but it's a waste of time.
Silver bugs is that you have admittedly a valuable commodity, elemental silver, that could be used for a variety of industrial applications. And if in doing so, if you do that, then it has the potential to generate a lot of wealth. Versus the sort of silver bug point of view, which is, well, its only valid use is as a reservoir of long-term capital. Right? It's a money store, basically. In which case, you could passively accumulate some value based on a belief that the demand for this material is going to go up. But it's one of the least effective wealth generation strategies because you're banking on a increase in value that will exceed the industrial utility. I think the reason why that fails is that the key driver of the value is its industrial utility. So, to the extent that it's a useful material, its value could keep going up. But if it becomes less useful, or it's replaced in some key industrial applications like photovoltaics or EVs, then its value might not climb so much. The problem with Dave's model of investment is it doesn't generate additional income. So, for example, if you had a choice of investing in equities or physical commodities, well, your equities will be paying out dividends, so you have some kind of additional income generation. Your commodities clearly don't, because they're just lumps of metal. However, there is one major upside of physical commodities, which is if you have a real market crash that leads to hyperinflation, then precious metals are a non-inflationary commodity. So you basically store some value as the rest of the world goes crazy. I think the big irony here, though, is that if you accept Dave's monetary theories, which is that he signs on to Richard Werner's theories of that borrowing creates capital, or creates credit, which is equivalent to capital, then the act of borrowing without an intent to pay back, which is basically what Dave's promissory note scam is, that would be the exact thing that would cause a currency to be diluted, because, according to this theory, capital is created but never uncreated, since the act of paying back a loan is what destroys the capital, what undoes the money creation. And in Dave's promissory note scam, that never happens. I think another irony of Dave's silver bug approach, if you see in his videos, he's actually accumulating physical silver. So you can see in the foreground in his Richard Vobes interview, there are literal bags, plastic bags containing solid silver bars. And so I always sort of think of that as possibly the most insane form of precious metals investment, because it's the least fungible form of silver as money, because if you actually did have to pay for something, you can't really get change from a bar of silver in any practical way. What if you want to buy? Famously, do you remember what was his name? Sovereign Pete, claiming that he could go to France and buy a croissant with a gold bullion coin. Well, that would be the world's most expensive croissant, and you would obviously get you'd get change in euros. So whatever advantage that he perceived this gold bullion having as a means of exchange and value preservation, it would be undone literally the first time you tried to use it. I suppose you could imagine some kind of currency system where people go and buy their croissant, and the way they actually pay for it is they shave a few grams of metal off their giant gold bar, and that relies on the patisserie having some kind of highly calibrated microbalance. So, I think let's park this idea, because it's precious metals as a means of directly paying for something, physical commodities as literal money, like a pirate might have, is a profoundly stupid idea. But you could invest in precious metals ETFs. So I actually made some good money a few years ago by betting on a precious metals basket. So it had gold, silver, platinum. These are all, these metals all have some industrial uses. And, I got lucky. It went up quite rapidly. And then I flipped some money into Bitcoin, and it went up even more rapidly. I've been very lucky out of these things. So my issue with Dave isn't so much that, it's not that I'm arguing that silver won't go up, because I think at the moment we're in quite a high inflationary period. So non-inflationary things will by definition hold their value more so than inflationary things. But it's not really a choice of money under the mattress versus silver, gold, or Bitcoin. The wise investor has a portfolio of all sorts of different things. But still, let's talk about, if you are going to invest in precious metals, Dave's still going about it in the dumbest possible way. As you could invest in ETFs, you could invest in things that are a little bit more fungible, exchangeable, money that's more mobile, and you can actually get in and out of. Another massive problem with what Dave does is, if he actually wants to sell his physical silver, really the only place you can do that is at some kind of physical metals exchange, so like a silversmith or a jeweler, or what was that name? That famous street in London where all the Hasidic jewelers have their businesses. I can't remember the name now. But you're actually going to be paying something like between a 5 and a 10% penalty for getting out of physical silver. If you, at the moment, you want to realize that value, you do not pay anywhere near that kind of penalty when you're exiting an ETF. So it's just one of those mad myths that he's signed on to, that he's just going to end up losing a lot of money, possibly. He could end up dying and leaving it. Actually, that is an advantage, because since it's just a lump of metal that presumably one day Dave, like all of us, will die, and then his children and grandchildren will receive this thing, they're going to get a sort of surprise tax-free bit of inheritance. It's basically a way of avoiding any kind of government scrutiny, because this block of metal is literally untraceable. So just another teaser. I've been reading a lot about genre in fiction. So not fiction books, but non-fiction books about fiction. And I've come to this idea that you can understand quite a lot of what's going on in the world of conspiracy theory by seeing it through the lens of genre, that basically people are LARPing, they're performing tropes, even if they don't understand what those tropes are and how they're participating in a shared fictional world. So I find this an interesting idea. I always